friend of mine arrived at an automobile service center not too long ago to pick up his car. And he was told that this car that he had left there to be repaired, they had locked his keys inside the car. So he went straight to the service department and found a mechanic working feverishly to unlock the driver's side of the door. And as he watched from the passenger side, he just instinctively tried the door handle and discovered that the door was unlocked. So he announced to the technician, "Hey, it's open." The technician replied, "I know, I already got that side." What is mindfulness? Is it just the quality or state of being conscious and aware of something? Mindfulness. The great American author James Agee wrote these telling words about his 5-year-old self and consciousness. He wrote, "After a little I am taken in and put to bed. Sleep, soft smiling, draws me unto her, and those receive me who quietly treat me as one familiar and well beloved in that home. But will not, will not now, not ever, but will not ever be able to tell me who I am." Being aware of who we are and what we are going through, but at the same time not missing the greater importance of the present moment to the surrounding community. Mindfulness. This week, a few of us watched as the little white chapel gardener trimmed the roses in the rose garden. This past Monday, Martin Luther King Day, was a sunshiny day, something we haven't seen for a while. Nothing extraordinary about the garden on that day, or the trimming, or the roses at all. Nothing to notice much at all, unless you were mindful of what those rose bushes in that garden represent. Each one of those rose bushes is planted in memory of some woman who heard the call of Christ and gave her life to Christ, serving in some part of Christ's ministry, most notably as part of the Disciples Women's Group here at Little White Chapel, the Christian Women's Fellowship. Some laid to rest not too long ago. Some laid to rest many, many years ago. Watching the gardener do his work with that knowledge, the ordinary trimming of the roses by the Little White Chapel gardener, Joel, took on great significance. We were mindful that he was tending our heritage. I thought of my own mother, who led our family in laying her beloved husband, my father, to rest just 3 years ago this coming March. And I remember that after a night of rest, she awoke and moved into purposeful action. She brought out the suit that she wanted him to wear for his final viewing, complete with a white shirt and a tie and a pocket handkerchief, and she informed me that I would be wearing the same. As would her grandson and her great-grandson. She informed my surviving sister and my cousins and the entire rest of the family what their roles were to be. Again, my mother was doing nothing extraordinary. My mother was doing the very ordinary. People lay their loved ones to rest every day. But my family moved with precision and sensitivity because we were motivated, directed, and included in a great, great love. We were mindful of a great, great love. Ordinary time with regard to liturgy and the liturgical year does not mean the opposite of special time. It does not mean that it's not Advent, it's not Christmas, it's not Lent, or it's not Holy Week. With regard to narrative scripture, ordinary or ordinal time, when the green is out in the sanctuary, is an adverb describing something called the ordinal season. The ordinal season. The Christian year is ordered by counting the worship days after holy events. For instance, we are in the third week of ordinal or ordinary time after Epiphany, the visit of the wise men to Jesus. And while there are no stars to follow, no angels singing from heaven, no babies being born in a manger, this season celebrates something very interesting. As my mother rested when my father passed and then began to do purposeful work, so Jesus withdrew when he heard that John the Baptist had been arrested. There is no record of Jesus and John ever speaking again, and John was executed soon after that. But when Jesus emerged from his rest with a great sense of purpose, he began to assemble his team. He began to call his disciples. In this gospel, he called 4 fishermen, Simon and Andrew, James, and James' brother, John. Jesus simply told them, leave your profitable occupations and follow me. Leave everything you know and follow me. In a time of occupation by Rome where citizenship and I suspect good-paying jobs were hard to come by, what a compelling presence Jesus must have been. But still, if we recall Mickey's reading, there was no sense of procrastination on the new disciples' part. No sense of fear. The text says, instantly they left what they were doing and followed Jesus. It was as if in the disciple-elect's work, they were mindful of and waiting for the leader, the promised Messiah, to stop by and help them fulfill their purpose, to give them their voices. Here we are at the beginning of the year. Again, the angels have left, the baby has been born and grown, and we will spend some ordinal time hearing the lessons of Jesus, and then it will be the holy time of self-examination known as Lent. Even as we do our day-to-day chores, what are you and I being called away from? What are we being called to? What are we being called to do? Are we called to fish for God's souls? And how are we to recognize our call? Mindfulness. Like little 5-year-old James Agee, no preacher, no parent, no lover can tell us who we are. When the divine summons us, we are called to wrestle with God and find our own voices and our own vocations. We are called to find our action in a million different ways. Because we know there are people outside with no place to go in the wet and cold, ongoing contribution to BTAC and week of compassion is mindfulness. Because we know that everybody is not equally ambulatory, taking the time to check on a church member or a neighbor who you haven't seen in a few weeks or who looks a little sad and out of place is mindfulness. Because we know many people we know spend a great deal of time alone writing a note to someone just because they made you smile or cheered you up or just because they needed it, that's mindfulness. Because we know that many people in the midst of other people feel unheard. Have you ever felt unheard surrounded by people? When we take the time to listen to the same story over and over because somebody needs to hear their own voice, that's mindfulness. Because we know that we all think differently. Humbly asking someone for a favor instead of just having entitlement issues because they couldn't read your mind is mindfulness. Because most of us speak English, but we are so culturally diverse, really thinking about the way we make a joke to a person who is from a different culture is mindfulness. A black president has left the White House. A businessman now occupies the White House. The divides and divisions are as deep as they ever have been. I was buying snacks for the Bible study this morning when a Latina who waited on me summoned another clerk to wait on the man in front of me. She said, every time I check him out, he manages to use the B word. Where is our walk with God in all this? As people struggle to be heard, where is our walk with God in a diverse congregation? One Muslim friend of mine once remarked to me, "Oh, of all people of faith, I so love and admire your Jesus. He is like a big spiritual rock star to me," he said, "and I stand in awe of him. I am one of his biggest fans." When you and I consider the world around us, what it needs, we are called to realize that Jesus calls you and I to be mindful as we hear his voice. In Christ, we are called to discover our individual purposefulness, and then we are called to move. All who raise their heads when they hear the voice of Jesus are called to examine their hearts and then leave their boats, leave their nets, and sometimes leave their family and friends, find their voices, and in 1,000 ways be different from the fans of Jesus. We are called to speak up. We are called to do. We are called to be followers. God, we thank you for the privilege of living in a place where we are not persecuted for our opinions and our perspectives. We thank you for a church that models being in your presence by inviting all types of people to your table without being disrespectful, without being rude, without rolling our eyes. Help us continue, even as we speak and proclaim what the gospel means to us, what equality means to us, what fairness means to us. Help us never forget to make room for every single person at your table. Help us to remember to be mindful. In your Son's name we pray.